Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of the Slouching towards Thatcham podcast, a podcast which showcases the very best of UK parents bloggers. I'm Tim from Slouching towards Thatcham, my blog about life as a father of 3 young children. On each week's podcast, I talk to a fellow parent blogger who talks about and reads one of their favourite posts, and I do the same with one of mine. It's as simple as that, bite-sized chunks of blogging brilliance. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by Hayley from the blog Downside Up, a winner of both the Inspire category at this year's BritMum's Brilliance in Blogging Awards and, just last month, the award for Outstanding Contribution at TOTS 100's Mad Awards. Hi there, Hayley.
Hi, Tim. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for joining me. To start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, the family, and the blog?
Myself, I'm Hayley got an Oscar, married to Bob, and we have 2 gorgeous daughters, Mia, who's 11, and Natty, who is 8. And unless your listeners don't know, Natty also happens to have Down syndrome. So that's us, pretty much. Bob used to be a music, business, audio, professional audio, marketing guy. That sort of puts it briefly in a nutshell. And I used to be a teacher and a voiceover artist. I've just been telling you before we went live here. Our family, just very typical, ordinary family. Yes, one of us has an additional chromosome, but that really doesn't sort of limit us in any way. And the blog really started as a way of showing other families, first of all, really putting resources together in one place, and then sort of offering support and kind of showing families perhaps with a new diagnosis just what Down syndrome really means today.
That's great, thanks. So today you're going to be reading us a post about Natty. Could you give us a little bit of background about it?
Yeah, this is a post that I think I wrote maybe a couple of years ago now, and it didn't really register on my, sometimes you just bash out a post and it doesn't really feel that important to you at the time you're writing. It just feels like a nice little post. It's not one that I spent a long time honing at all. And it actually turns out to be one of the most widely viewed. People just really love it, Tim. And it came about when Natty had been a little bit poorly, and we'd just been to see our GP. Nothing really out of the ordinary in that for Natty. And it's called The Doctor's Waiting Room, the contribution our daughter makes. It's sort of the contribution she makes to society, actually. And it's just an observational post, really, based on things that I witnessed while we were in that waiting room.
Okay, fantastic. So in that case, let me just hand the reins over to you now. Away you go.
Thank you, Tim. Okay. The Doctor's Waiting Room, or the contribution our daughter makes. Today we spent a good 40 minutes in the waiting room of our local doctor's surgery. Nothing unusual in that with our little Natty. We're talking low-grade poorly, off colour, off school, off her food. But after the out-of-the-blue nasty episode that sent Mummy and Daddy off the scale with worry and her into hospital 2 weeks ago, we were covering all bases. I digress. I sat mentally noting the events that took place in the waiting room today. No more out of the ordinary than on any other of our gazillion visits, but perhaps because we were there a little longer, and perhaps because being a blogger changes the way you view the ordinary, I thought I'd write to you all about it. We check in. Each of the receptionists knows Natty by name, so we have a little chat and a giggle with them while Natty sits on their front desk. As we round the corner to the seating area, I realise I'm a little tense. I know from experience what's to come, and I'm on red alert in order to orchestrate it. For Natty loves attention, and here is her audience, a captive audience, stuck in white clean seats, impatiently awaiting their turn to deliver their 5-minute soundbite about their ailment to their busy GP, hoping that he or she will understand and come up with the right solution. It's a kind of medical X factor on a conveyor belt, really. I digress again. These people are stuck, with Natty thinking she is at the helm of HMS waiting room. She starts gently. We both sit down, all quiet and demure, sweetness and light, politely smiling at the silent ones who got there first. I whisper conversation to Natty about the doctor, how she's feeling, what we'll eat for lunch when we get home. But she has spied her first target. A girl around her age, sitting slightly off to the left. Natty sends out a precisely aimed cheeky look, engages her prey, then pokes out her tongue as far as she can. Now, that's one trick that kids with Down syndrome are particularly good at, whilst shaking her head. The whole waiting room stop and look, then titter in unison. Just the very positive reinforcement we need to keep this act going. Absolutely great. Natty smiles her cutest, sweetest, sugar-coated smile, flashes it all round the room, and there we have them all entranced. We all return politely to semi-silence, shipshape and British fashion. I do my distraction routine, pulling things out of my handbag. Everyone else tries to look away, but I know they're all ensnared, trapped in Natty's charming headlights. It's half that they want to look at the child with a disability, half that they can't believe how pretty and bright and chatty she is because they're conditioned to think differently, and half that she's such a star entertainer that they can't wait for the next instalment. Wait, that makes 1.5. That'll be the extra chromosome factor then. A pale but pretty young woman with bleached hair and sad eyes sits opposite Natty. She's bundled up in oversized dark jumpers and sits with her head in her hands, elbows resting on quaking knees. She looks to me like someone who really needs a hug. Natty hops down from her chair and stands about 3 inches from the young woman, bent low to look straight into her eyes, and whispers, "Are you cold?" The woman slowly looks up, as if roused from a dream or maybe a nightmare. She smiles, slowly, but directly at Natty. I apologise for the interruption, but she says it's okay. She and Natty compare shoes and smiles and chat for a bit. I notice her legs don't shake again. Then Natty decides it's time to remove everyone's noses. Don't tell me you don't do the same when you're in a waiting room. She took mine off first, between her thumb and forefinger, in the style of 4 and 20 blackbirds. She then went to each and every patient, from 5 to 85 years, all 12 or so of them, and performed her nosectomy. When they were all giggling enough, she did another lap, this time replacing the olfactory features. When she'd finished, she brushed her hands up and down past each other. "There," she stated, "all done." She got 1 or 2 guffaws as her reward this time. Finally, she went over to a lady sitting more quietly with her husband in a corner. Silently, she placed her head on the lady's lap. I heard her say, "It's okay, lady." Husband and wife shared a knowing glance. It was our turn. We were called in. A quick recap, more antibiotics, hand gel application while we waited for the magic potion, or banana juice, as we call the yellow gloop in our house. As we made our way to the car outside, the lady, the quiet lady, and her husband approached us. She told me in the car park that she has breast cancer. She's due to start chemotherapy in a day or 2. Such private information from a stranger humbles me. She also wanted to tell me that she usually dreads doctor's appointments and waiting in a sombre waiting room. She wanted to tell me that today was the first time that she and her husband had laughed in quite a while. She thanked Natty for that. And here is the point in a nutshell. My fears over the germs Natty was getting in that waiting room seemed insignificant. My worries over not letting her talk to strangers seemed neurotic. Natty had again lit up a room with her presence and made a real and lasting difference to someone's life this morning.
Thanks, Hayley. This is such a lovely post, and it's a great reminder that our children can touch so many people's lives in a positive way, not just their immediate families.
Yes, they can, and sometimes it's the older folk that we think are a bit miserable and we need to keep them quiet, but actually we forget that. I was listening to somebody on the TV the other day, I can't remember who it was, an older actor who said, no, never mind keeping kids out of pubs and keeping them quiet. I love young people. They keep me young. They bring a different dimension, So there's a little bit of that as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case, isn't it? So thank you so much for taking the time to read the post for us and for joining me on this week's podcast.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thanks for having me.
If you want to read more of Hayley's inspiring writing, go to her blog Downside Up at downsideup.com or follow her on Twitter at DownsideUp. I'll attach links on the show notes over on slouchingtowardsthatcham.com. Hayley's post beautifully illustrated how her daughter's personality can fill a room and bring a smile to even a stranger's face. We have a similar thing with Cara, who also leaves an impression on everyone she meets. She may be the youngest of our 3 children, but such is the forcefulness of her personality that she more than punches above her weight when it comes to bossing her brothers and her parents around. This is a post from the start of the year, a few months before she turned 3, that illustrates how she rules the roost. It's called Bossy Boots. Most mornings in our household, you'll hear a shrill female voice shouting something along the lines of, "Daddy, it's time to go upstairs. Boys, breakfast!" Now, before you put 2 and 2 together and start accusing me of casting aspersions about my wife Heather, let me point out that I'm talking about Cara, all 2 years and 8 months of her. I've never been under any illusions about my position in the pecking order in our family. The children come first, then Heather, then the goldfish. We don't actually have any goldfish, but I'm below them anyway. Then pond scum and Daily Mail journalists, and then, and only then, me. That's okay. I accept my role in life is to keep my family in the manner to which they have become accustomed. To be the chauffeur who does fast starts in his car at the behest of his Top Gear mad boys, and to keep Costa coffee shops in profit by purchasing an endless stream of baby chinos and mini muffins from them. It could be worse, I suppose. What's funny is to watch the way the power dynamics between our 3 children work. As the oldest, Isaac, 7 years old, naturally takes on a lot of responsibility. He's the one who takes pride in being the big brother, the organiser, the one who ensures that everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. If he could wear a hard hat and high visibility jacket and carry a clipboard and a red pen, he would. But he's not the one in charge. As the middle child, Toby, 5, isn't responsible for much more than getting himself dressed in the morning. He flits around independently, often in his own little world, when he's being charming, or, alternatively, on a different planet, when he's not. He's a sweet kid, but when he wants to get his own way, he will first whinge until his voice becomes so high that only dogs can hear him, and then he will simply ignore instructions altogether. He can be as stubborn and willful as they come when he puts his mind to it. But he's not the one in charge either. Oh no. If there's one child who will boss both siblings and parents around with unparalleled forcefulness, it's our little daughter. And she knows she's the one in charge too. She barks orders like a drill sergeant. She will march up to anyone who isn't obeying, place her hands firmly on her hips, and fix them with a hard stare that would make Paddington Bear proud. And if that doesn't work, she isn't afraid to take physical action to get what she wants. No, Daddy, I want Mummy to read tonight. Isaac, come here now. I don't want to do it, followed by a foot stomp that has been known to register on the Richter scale. You know the sort of thing. She was like this even before she could form proper sentences. She has a knack of forming temporary alliances to get what she wants, Whether it's ganging up on Toby with Isaac, or running up to me with a big smile and a cuddle when she wants to do something Mummy has just told her she can't. She knows exactly which buttons to push to get people to comply, or in particular with Toby, who can be a bit on the gullible side, how to wind him up, a sport she pursues with great gusto. But the fact remains that, bossy boots or not, both boys are protective of their little sister and love her dearly. The same goes for me. That's just what big brothers and dads do, isn't it? And that's it for this episode of the Slouching Towards Thatcham podcast. If you'd like to listen to either future or previous episodes, you'll find them published on the blog and also on iTunes and various other podcasting sites. You can follow me on the blog at slouchingtowardsthatcham.com, on Twitter at ThatchamDad, and on various other social media channels. You'll find links to all of the above, plus Hayley's links, in the show notes on the blog. All that remains is for me to say thank you all for listening to this podcast, and hopefully you'll join me again next week. Until then, goodbye.